I know. It's 8 o'clock, nobody's awake yet. Good morning. I'd like to call the regularly scheduled Board of Selectmen meeting for Monday, June 17th, 2019 to order. First order of business, pledge allegiance. Charlie, would you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Charlie. Item 2 is a public hearing to obtain comments on programs that shall be included on a list pursuant to Chapter 228A of the Connecticut General Statutes, Neighborhood Assistance Act, prior to submission of such list to the State of Connecticut Department of Revenue Services. For those who have past recall from previous years, and we every year we entertain presentations or the requests for the funds from various nonprofits, and it looks like we have a repeat set of requests from last year. The first was Lifelinks, who Tracy has just informed me will not be here to present today, owing to the fact that the primary contact had a death in the family. So we have the application in front of us. And it looks to be, it's a $150,000 request for energy conservation measures. So we can certainly talk about that a little bit later. But the other two.
Is that the one that didn't apply last year?
No, they applied last year for, I believe it was a sober living facility.
I thought that was the
Did it
one
get
that-
pulled at the end or something?
Something happened, yeah.
Okay.
No, that was our budget funding, I think.
Oh, okay.
That-
There you go.
On the human services.
Yes,
Right.
yeah.
Good memory, Charlie. Good call. Second, we have two applications from Sarah. Want to come on up and talk a little bit about it, please? Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you, Ken?
Good morning. Ken Alberti, Executive Director at the Sarah Foundation. We have two applications, and as you mentioned, they look familiar from last year, if you recall. I have two here, so I can perhaps start with the Sarah Inc.
Yep.
Proposal. And that one would fall under the program serving low-income persons category on this, as part of this program. And so this program is part of our social interaction and kind of recreational activities, and so obviously having positive social interactions is proven to be something that's going to lead to a quality life. And so this program specifically will teach about food preparation and proper eating, which is information that we all need, certainly folks who may not have access to that on a regular basis, and folks who perhaps have other disabilities that may not allow them to fully understand that. So having a group interactions to teach and learn some of those good habits is a really important program for us, and it's one of those that's really on the social interaction side, so critical, so folks aren't isolated in their residence. So that's a program that we're seeking funding totaling $5,000 to help fund an 8-week program later this year.
In the paragraph, neighborhood area to be served, it says Branford. Is that a cut and paste issue, or?
That is a typo. Apologies on that one. I can correct it and resend it if you'd like.
Please do.
I will.
Anything else? Ken, what's the second?
I assume you're going to plug at Guilford, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Otherwise, I'd be at a different meeting.
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you for catching that. And the second is similar to last year. There's a facility that we run programs in that does not have proper air conditioning and heating systems in place. We have a different number. Last year we requested a higher number because we were still early in the process. We didn't know exactly what we were going to do there and how much that was going to cost. This year we're requesting $40,000. We have a couple solutions that may require ductless solutions that may be just a little more cost effective and energy efficient as well. So this obviously falls under the energy efficiency category, conservation category, and so it continues to be a need. We received approval last year, which we're thankful for. We just were not able to secure the funding that we needed to complete the project. So we're hoping that will get accomplished this year.
Good. Any other questions? Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Pleasure. Women and Family Life Center. Good morning, Megan.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
So, our application should look similar to last year's. So we're just looking for, it's the same project, energy conservation. We've started our window replacement, but it's all of the windows in the main building. So this year, we were able to go through all of the approvals for all the town commissions. We got approval in April from the Historic Commission on the windows, so we purchased them using the last year's NAA grant and some other funding we were able to secure from the Community Foundation of Greater New Haven, and then private donations. But we're looking for the balance of $13,800 to complete the project moving forward.
What was the total?
It was $28,800.
And you did receive funding last year, right?
We did receive, we requested, I think, 21,000, and we received 4,500. So we put that toward the purchase of the windows up front. So it's about 8,000 for the windows. So we've secured that, and the project will start in mid-July. But to get through the rest of it, we do need to secure additional funding.
Good. Anything further?
Nope.
No? Good. Thank you, Amy. A quick question, procedurally, do we need to act on this now?
I have it later in the meeting.
Later in the meeting, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Item 3, public forum. Anyone wishing to address the board in public forum? Hearing none, let's move on to item 4, and that's approved minutes. 4.1 would be the May 28th, 2009 public hearing. Is there anything on that?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
I was
You
not
wanna do-
there.
Second.
Second. Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals. Motion carries. 4.2, the June 3rd, 2019 regular meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Comments, questions, et cetera. I was not able to attend. Anything from anyone? No?
Nope.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, all recused. Motion carries. Item 5, 5.1, town engineer. Good morning, Janice.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
We are considering and possibly taking action on the tie-in bond agreement for the engineering phase of the Route 77 pedestrian improvement project, as well as the agreement between the state and the town of Guilford, and authorize the first selectman to sign all related documents.
That's correct.
Floor is yours.
Thank you. As you recall, I had come to you a few months ago because we had a selection process in which we identified Ty and Bond as our preferred consultant for the project through a qualification selection. And since then, we've worked with DOT to scope out the project and then work through man hours and the negotiations on costs for the project. And so what you have before you is the actual contract between the town and Ty and Bond, which totals $221,863 with an extra work balance of $22,187. And that is because DOT has set aside $250,000 for this phase of the work, which is the full engineering for the project on Route 77 to extend sidewalks from about Adams Middle School up to, we're hoping to go as far as Hubbard Road, but if not, at least the Art Center and the Racket Center.
Without getting too involved, how exactly are you gonna handle it under the turnpike?
That's the most challenging part, and it's pretty much, we've identified the width and I identified the east side of the roadway to be the area where there's enough room to add in the sidewalk. There's a bit of a shoulder there, elevated shoulder there now, and we believe we can make it fit.
The way the sidewalk was added to Goose Lane, yeah, it's there, but boy, It's a pretty risky one, and is this one going to be a little bit more pedestrian friendly? Because they might have more kids on this one, that's.
Yeah, one of the things is to request reduction of lane widths from DOT for the roadway. We have the
And
left
Reduction of what?
lane widths.
Oh, lane widths, yes.
In order
No
to.
logic to railings or anything like that.
That'll be part of the study in terms of whether or
Okay.
not railings are warranted. We expect to be able to get at least a 5-foot sidewalk and perhaps even wider. And in that case, that gives you, with a curb, a little protection from the traveling.
So if
Yeah,
this,
good. Go ahead.
if the sidewalk's on the east side, will there be a crosswalk to the west side?
Yes, yeah, it's unfortunate, there's a bit of a circuitous route you have to take because of the east side of the road from Adams up to the highway really isn't lending itself well to building sidewalks in that area, and there's already a sidewalk on the west side of the road. So likely be crossings at the intersections, at the interchange, which on the south side is currently signalized, so we'll likely add a pedestrian phase to that signal so that it's a safe cross with hopefully a pedestrian dedicated phase. And then we're looking at, on the north side of the highway, that intersection of the interchange to see if signals warranted there, not just for the pedestrian phase, but also we believe that at this point, based on traffic counts, that a signal's likely warranted just based on the volume of traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Makes
the
sense.
north, the intersection north of Turnpike, I mean, that's almost more problematic. I mean, everybody,
Yes.
on the south side, everybody just plain stops.
Stops,
That's
yeah.
pretty straightforward, but the north side, people start getting anxious, especially coming off the highway.
Yeah, you have the stop-controlled intersection with the exit ramp, and then the challenge also is those two park-and-ride driveways so close to that interchange, so it's something we'll be studying quite
Yeah.
closely. And just so you know, there will be public information meetings too, and a little bit of outreach to
I'm
get
sure
people's
that's gonna be a
comments.
trial and everything, 'cause that, you're worrisome about encouraging, I mean, you want people to walk and children to walk, but that's a tough area. It's
Yes.
gonna be problematic, no matter what we do.
Yeah, and Charlie, the primary motivation is there are already people walking in that
Well,
area,
that's it. We're
particularly-
trying to
particularly
improve.
students,
Exactly, yeah.
young adults
Yeah.
who are going from Adams to the variety of social or the arts program, the sports complex, et cetera. So
Yeah,
there are folks already utilizing that on a regular basis.
Yeah, and
We're
this-
just gonna have to go real heavy on the pedestrian friendliness, that's for sure.
Right, yeah, we'll do everything we can to make sure it's as safe as possible. And this, leads into a transportation plan to really connect the middle school to the high school someday, so this sets that path forward.
Start. Good. Anything further? All right, is there a motion to authorize the first selectman to sign all related documents?
So moved.
Second.
Any further questions or comments? Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you.
Janice. Item 6, Finance Director Mary Jane Malavasi. 6.1 is to receive the monthly report from the Finance Director. And that would be Mary
Good
Jane.
morning.
Good morning.
I'll start with revenues.
There you go.
Revenues overall are at 101.3%. If you note, just make some note on some things, the building department's additional revenue explains the overage in their contracted services on the expenditure side.
Thank you.
The golf course, I am anticipating coming in short on their revenue this year. The fire department continues to be current on their deposits with their new system and is expected to end the year with a surplus. Been working with Charlie on both the revenue and the expenditure side. I don't have exact numbers obviously yet for you. Assuming we continue to have such nice weekends, Park and Rec should bring in all of the rest of its projected revenue. You'll note towards the bottom that there is a transfer of 39,066 in the Board of Education ECS line. That is a transfer of the actual amount of the excess cost grant. The Board of Finance at one of their meetings did make a motion to have the town give that back to the Board of Education. The anticipated number was much higher than that, but it came in at 39,066, and that money has already been transferred to the Board of Education. We are expecting our final state grant payment in the amount of just shy of $65,000. It comes in normally the very end of June. That would bring our state grant line almost equal to budget. So on the state side, we've done well. Interest income, tax collections, and the additional amount we've received from ECS account for the majority of the $1.4 million surplus in revenue I anticipated at year end.
Wonderful. Finance is nearly 500,000. Good. What did we set the target for?
Not that high.
4 and change, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. For 2020. Good.
Mhm.
And once again, building, if you would just want to explain for those in the viewing audience how that works.
Right, we have some large projects in the building department. Specifically, there's a project with Yale
Right.
that we do hire an outside contractor to manage those projects for us. We did that, the same thing with the high school. So when we have these very large projects, we have a contractor. We do budget some for contracted services each year. When these large projects come up, we end up overexpending that budget. So you see that on the revenue side, with the revenue coming in for the project, and the expenditure side, with the expense going out for those services.
Good.
Sandy, do you feel confident that that situation where contracted services are going to be covered with the new charges in the building department? The fees and sure.
Yeah, I think so, yes.
That was a consideration?
Yes.
Right. I also want to talk just briefly for those in the viewing audience as well. The tax situation, we're significantly over. At this point, current year taxes are at 100.6. Can you explain how it is that we are collecting more than we had anticipated?
Well, there's a couple things. We do well bringing in our taxes. Guilford residents are very good at paying their taxes. We do have other items that go in there for certain small things. But the biggest thing is when we set our mill rate each year, we make adjustments to our grand list based on estimates we have for delinquencies, tax appeals, and items that we know are on the table that may or may not come to fruition, but we do make those adjustments every year because at some point that will happen. And then by the time we set our mill rate in April, and by the time the bills go out in July, we are still working on that grand list, and then the final numbers they're not apples to apples at that point. So the good thing is we end up with a surplus typically at the end of the year instead of the other way around, because we do the best we can to make those numbers.
We always want to err on the conservative side.
Correct,
Exactly.
correct.
And then if it works out better, that's
Right.
good.
One large tax appeal goes through this year and it wipes that out. You know what I mean? We have a couple large ones, so.
And one other area, if you wouldn't mind covering, because of the delay or the lag time between when we set our budget and when the state sets their budget, there is often a discrepancy in what we anticipate getting in state aid versus what materializes when the legislature passes their budget, which is usually at about 10 minutes to midnight on the day that they close session. So, and for instance, this past year, could you just talk a little bit about what we did in terms of anticipated state revenue and what the numbers actually wound up being?
Right, as you know, throughout the budget process, we look at the state revenue numbers many different times. The governor sets some numbers, the legislature looks at it, we take some review, we speak to our legislators, we kind of get an idea of where we go. We typically budget somewhere in the middle, to the best of our ability of what we're looking for. We, at the last couple of years, anticipated some large cuts in ECS. We also talked about the possibility of giving money to the Teachers Retirement Board. We in both years chose not to account for the Teachers Retirement Board, and even moving forward, which was a good decision, because that did not come to fruition. We did take a cut in the ECS as far as our budget. The cut did not come down as much as we thought, which you see the additional revenue that we received this year. On the state grant side, there was one grant that we did not receive this year that we had budgeted for, but we had other revenues that were not anticipated that came in, which, as you see, balance out to zero, almost zero on the state side. I have done an analysis of our 2020 budget. What we've budgeted on the state side is identical to what was approved so far. And the only difference is in the ECS, and I anticipate $99,000 more in ECS revenue than we budgeted. So overall, we've come in very close for 2020 as well.
For the benefit of the audience, what grant did we not receive?
It's one of the municipal
Revenue
in
sharing?
revenue, the revenue sharing grant, right?
Also important to keep in mind that the state revenues budgeted in the current year were $3 million, right, out of a total of $97 million.
Yeah.
Correct.
So it's not like it's half of our budget, it's a small piece of our
Exactly
budget.
right. We're able to manage those ups and downs in the state side because we don't depend
Yeah.
as highly on those as some other communities do.
Exactly.
Good.
At one point, we did rely significantly more on the state, particularly the ECS formula. It was maybe 20 years ago that we received about 12.5% to 13% of our education funding through the ECS formula, and the dollar amount was about $3 million, a little over $3 million. Today, or for 2020, we're looking at about 1.6 million, 1.7 million, which constitutes less than 3% of state. So we have, for lack of a better term, weaned ourselves off of state aid. Well, we were weaned off of it, excuse me, over time. So it's been a gradual shift. And for those who are paying attention to what's going on up in the legislature, there are additional erosions to ECS scheduled over the next 6 to 7 years.
There's
as part of the
there's a 10-year plan.
a 10-year plan. So there are some communities that are now no longer budgeting state reimbursement for ECS and other programs. So unfortunately, we may be in that position in a few years. So,
Right. But so far, we've been able to absorb those ebbs and flows in that area, so.
good. All right. Anything else on revenues, expenses?
Just wanted to note a couple things. Last month, when Sandy reported, she would have discussed the insurance budget was overdrawn last month, and the waste transfer station transfer has been made as we anticipated, so that insurance budget is back in line to how it should be. The legal budget, which we've talked about, I've been stating that it will go over, did go over in May, not by as much as we've anticipated at this point. There will obviously be some additional expenditures, and we'll handle that at the end of the year. But that was one of the budgets that I've been reporting for months that we knew in advance that we would be over in that one. The building department is overdrawn, as I noted when talking about revenues. Can't transfer the revenue. We don't transfer the revenues into there, but that is an explanation as to where the overage in that department lies. Natural resources is overdrawn at the moment. We do have some outstanding purchase orders. I've spoken with Kevin McGee, and we're looking at those purchase orders to see what is needed and what may not be needed at year end. As I've reported, more than once trees have been an issue for us. I know he's here, you can ask him yourself. So the fire department is awaiting 2 quarters of Safer Grant reimbursements. So if you look at their budget, it looks as if they're in trouble, but we are anticipating $160,000 coming in from the Safer Grant through the end of the year. Half of that has already been requested, and the other half we can't do until after June 30. So, but we should be all set. That offsets full-time salaries. We do anticipate possibly still being over budget at the end of the year. As I mentioned, I have been working with the fire chief on these numbers. They're currently working on their estimates. They've had some rather large maintenance issues. If you look at the detail, you'll see their building maintenance is over by, I want to say 30,000 if my memory is correct. They've had additional training requirements on the EMS side, and continued replacement needs. But again, I'm working with the fire chief, and they are aware that I'm making this report today, so. As I noted last meeting, requesting transfers from the reserve fund balance and operating surpluses, which will offset the capital overage that you see there. Again, we allowed some surplus in the engineering line to be used for some capital purchases and some other items that we're able to lower our capital needs for next year. So we'll be making those transfers from there, as well as from some of the reserve items that we have set aside, such as IT, for instance. The same as with the debt that we have money set aside to cover the overage that's there in debt. That's our premium offsets. So we will be making those at the end of the year. But overall, our expenditures are slightly higher than they were at last time. And as I reported last month, and have not changed my opinion, we anticipate to be relatively flat on the expenditure side. So any surplus that we have will all come, or mostly come, from the revenue side. We will not be going over in expenditures, but I don't anticipate
Thank you for that
that there's
clarification.
going to be a lot there left over at the end of the year.
Wonderful. Any further on expenses? No? Anybody have any questions on warrants or anything? No? Medical benefits? Question? The medical benefits, we're still projecting nearly a $1.15 million surplus in the medical benefits account, which is good on a couple of fronts. One, just the financial news, but two, obviously, employees are not utilizing the medical services, medical accounts to the degree that we need to, that we anticipated. The catastrophic claims stop loss, it looks like we have
Surpassed
covered.
our premium.
We have
Yes.
surpassed the premium by nearly $100,000 with a month still to go. So that continues to prove to be an effective tool for managing our costs.
Yep, even though
The margin's getting slimmer every
I
year,
know.
but
And if you remember, we, kind of, groaned a little bit when we saw that amount for
Right.
this year's budget, but
Right.
our estimates,
Yeah.
I won't say our our professionals who gave us those estimates were pretty spot on.
right,
Mhm.
very close.
Interesting.
Good. Anything further? No? Good. Thank you, Roseanne.
Thank you.
Item 7, Public Works Director, Tom Fillion, 7.1. Discuss and take possible action to approve the purchase of a diagnosis tool from Connected Automotive Systems. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning. All right. We were looking into another system that would give us a variety of data from the different places like Ford and International Freightliner. It's not easy to find these type of tools, and we come up with two. One was JPro, the other one was CAS, the Connected Auto Systems, and we're going with that one because it's cheaper,
Right.
and it also still allows us to buy later on if we have to buy some input to some of our equipment.
Okay.
The system comes with technical support, which is really good because they'll come down and they'll set everything up. We already had them come down to check out the system, make sure this is gonna be something we wanted. But they'll go over the whole system with us. They have a 1-year warranty on it. All the connections and pins for every different vehicle is allowed in there. It's a hard laptop casing and everything. And they also have real person there if we had some problem. We can talk to somebody and they'll actually be on board.
Yeah.
The cost of J Pro was a little bit more. It was like over 11,000. The CAS is fine for us. We went through everything. That comes to a cost of $10,917.95, of which the capital allotment was $12,000.
That was perfect. It's
So
all under.
it worked out pretty good.
Now, this is over and above the model-specific modules that I know we've purchased in the past.
Yes. See,
So
the other-
like, the next item is a new Freightliner truck.
Right.
I mean, that's gonna have its own information
Yes.
from the dealer, and this is over and above.
Over and above. See, a lot of times with the other ones, with Mac, we found out that a lot of the schematics that we need, it's extra money or they won't allow it. They only allow so much input, and that's it, because they end up wanting you to go to them. So these systems here, they acquired it from all the different companies. They changed it a little bit so that they don't hurt the patent on it, and they offer it, and the format is the same throughout all the things for Freightliner and like that, so it's a lot more compatible for us.
New world out there.
Absolutely.
Plug it in.
Diagnosis, right? Takes the
Yeah,
guessing
but
out of it.
it's, I think I brought this up before, that, when we're buying new equipment, we have to understand that the service of it has changed. I mean, one time it was described where, we didn't do the maintenance on time, so the truck shut off.
Right.
I mean.
And that does happen.
So going to the days where the mechanic just listens and figures out what's wrong, right? All right.
The
is your-
wife talking to the husband.
Ooh, I'm leaving that one alone, Charlie. All right, is there a motion to approve the purchase of this automotive diagnosis tool from Connected Automotive Systems, in the amount of $10,917.95? And a second.
Second.
Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals. Hearing none, motion carries. 7.2, consider and take possible action on the purchase of Freightliner 11145D, a 10-wheel dump truck and body package off-state contract number 14 PSX 0239. Tom, want to talk a little
Thanks
bit
for
about?
doing most of the work for me.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
All right, this will be replacing a truck 98, which has a good amount of years on it. And we already went through truck 98 before, rebuilding it, and now it's at a point where it's beyond rebuilding.
What year is truck 98?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's 2003. So this new truck, we're gonna go with Freightliner again. We talked it over with the commission, and we were happy with the setups of these trucks, so everybody agreed that we would go with Freightliner once again. And the body package that we're gonna have is a stainless steel all-season body. We're gonna try it on 10-wheeler first one. And I'm only gonna go one all-season body like this, but this way it'll allow us an extra sander that's still left over in case we have any other truck this down. It's got a Viking plow and a Wausau, a Viking plow hoist and a Wausau plow. And basically the body on this thing too will be a hard ox body inside, so that if we are dumping anything heavy duty, that's the best interior body part you can have to protect it. So that cost comes to $252,889.05, and that's under the $280 that we're allowed to
We
have.
budgeted, right? Good. Tom, I know there was some back and forth with the commission relative to Mack versus Freightliner. And I know that there were some on the commission who were suggesting we take a closer look at Freightliner.
Yes.
Are you guys comfortable that Freightliner's gonna be able to do the work you need to do?
We're definitely comfortable. We did a lot of checking on this stuff.
Right.
we brought the two trucks down together, and we went over it for, our mechanics as far as working on them, which is a big deal. The Max, we found out that we keep going through rear springs on them every year.
Okay.
So there's a different spring set, not even a spring setup, it's more like it's called Charmers, like it's a different setup that's not really springs. And so we wanted, and we looked into some information on that and found out that they do hold up very well. Other than that, the trucks are pretty comparable, and right now Freightliner is going to town building all new buildings up there where because Carl went up to take a look at some of the buildings, their setups are they got a huge area which they're gonna be doing stuff.
I noticed this was Hartford. I mean, isn't there a dealer in Branford?
Yeah, but the main dealer would be up in Hartford.
So we're gonna be buying from the Hartford
Hartford one,
dealer,
yes.
but if we had an emergency or parts, they would be available?
Yeah,
I mean, do they?
Yes, you do have parts down there at Freightliner Brand. We do go there for some parts sometimes, but mostly it would be going up and dealing with Hartford.
Yeah,
On a
that's
good
it.
point, my brother's a mechanic up there too, so. That's a big help for us. But we were impressed with the Freightliner, and therefore, and talking with the commission again, we decided that we're going off the state bid, that we would go that way again and see how the 10-wheeler would turn out. But so far, the truck itself is impressive.
Right, good.
This
And again-
isn't the first Freightliner. I mean, I know we've had the discussion.
Right. We went with a 6-wheel Freightliner
Right.
that we're
I've
currently.
seen it around.
Yep.
Right. But this is the first 10-wheel?
Yep.
Right. And again, just for to clarification, this was purchased off the state bid?
Yes.
Bid contract, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Public Works Commission
Yeah,
signed off on
and the
it?
Public Works, yeah, that's what we were talking about, Public
Yes.
Works.
Yes,
The
they did.
commission, the
Yep.
commission was largely in favor of
Yes.
taking a look at the Freightliner. right?
Largely in favor of, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, we looked at these trucks. We got a good
Side by side.
side-by-side look at them.
Good. All right, anything further?
Was there much of a price difference?
Well, as far as between Mack,
Freightliner and Mack, yeah.
that, I would imagine there's probably at least $20,000 different than Mack.
Max is higher.
That'd be higher.
I mean, that's what
Mack
we
is
ran
always-
into before, and
Right.
we,
Yeah. Mack's a well-built truck, but they always go on the heavier side,
Side.
they build them heavier. But this is definitely adequate for what our needs are.
Good. All right, is there a motion to approve?
so moved.
Okay.
Second.
Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, call the question, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you
When do
very
we
much.
expect delivery on this?
On this one?
Ready for the snow.
So, yeah?
As soon as we can, and
Okay.
we had to put in for it, to get ourselves in.
Slide it in.
and Slide it in, because it's going quick. I mean, later and later, I'm hoping that we can see this thing before December, but I don't think so. And I mean, it all depends on how we get in the lineup of the build. And that would be for the truck, not the whole build-up.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom.
All right, thank you.
Item 8, facilities engineer Steve Nydorf, to discuss and take possible action on Town Hall South carpet replacement. Steve, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Facilities Department went out and requested quotes from local contractors. I got 3 back, the lowest being Joe's Paint and Flooring out of Branford, $19,700.
Okay.
The next one was about $2,000 higher, and the third was actually $10,000 higher. So I'm requesting we go with Joe's Paint and Flooring.
Okay.
I assume we've done work with them before?
Yes, I have.
He's just gonna ask that.
Name sounded familiar.
Yeah, we have approved.
Yeah, several times.
I mean, that's quite a 50% spread. You gotta wonder what's going on.
Well, they're 50% spread, and they wanted to do it during normal working hours too. So on top of it, Joe's is willing to do it on the weekends.
Wow.
Yeah. That counts for a lot.
So not only are they cheaper, but they're willing to do
That's
it
a
on,
big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
on the weekend
That's sort
schedule.
of throw out a number to see if somebody bites, right?
yeah.
Something going on.
Yeah.
They
Not
all
a
do
problem.
bigger jobs, they do a lot of schools and stuff, so I'm sure they're,
So the anticipation is this is done on nights and weekends, so it's not gonna disrupt
Correct.
the operations of
Yes.
town hall south?
Great.
Okay.
Great.
Do you have a time slotted for when you would anticipate doing the work at this point?
just during the summer at some
Summertime.
point, yes.
Okay.
Need a motion?
Yeah,
I'll move it.
and a second.
Second.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, motion carries. That brings up a sore subject, the carpet that's in this facility. We you and I have had some discussions, and I think we actually talked about this. There is still money that has been held for some time to replace carpet in town hall. Challenge is that we may have an asbestos issue, so I think that last we talked, we were gonna bring a vendor in to try to help us.
Right.
How would we stage
Correct.
this? Because shutting down large portions of town hall may be problematic. So.
It's gonna be a huge project.
It's gonna be a huge project, so, look forward to the opportunity to meet with that vendor to see how we can schedule that.
Okay.
So, all right.
Very good.
Either that or we all take a 2-week vacation, right? Is it? I don't think that'll play well.
No.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Two. Number 9, Fire Chief Charles Hershat. 9.1, consider and take possible action to waive the bidding and purchase an ambulance from Excellence due to it being a sole source vendor. Good morning, Charlie. How are you?
I brought this before the Board of Fire Commissioners, and they agreed to request with the Board of Selectmen to waive the bidding requirements. We've been doing business with Excellence for just about 25 years. They build an excellent product, they meet our specifications, and just requesting the Board to waive the bidding.
Charlie, this number is within the framework that we had talked about. during
Exactly,
the
right
budget
down to the
season.
penny.
Right. Good, good. Okay, any other questions or comments?
I don't know.
Charlie, you got one?
Well, in our board pack, there's some handwritten notes on here, and one of them, it almost appears to be a New York Times article about specs. Anything we should be aware of?
Counselor? No?
Okay.
Good.
Okay, commission said go, you say go. I'll
We say
move it.
go. Charlie moves
I'll
it.
second.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Let me ask you the same question I asked Tom. When do you think you'll receive delivery of this?
120 days from time of purchase order.
Wow. Excellent.
Okay.
We've
Got
got
it on the
it?
Thank you.
calendar.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, item 10. Tax collector Deb Milano is in the back of the room. Discuss and take possible action allowing tax collector to initiate tax sale and prepared list of properties. Good morning, Debbie.
Good morning, everyone.
How are you?
Good, and how's everybody?
Wonderful, thank you.
Good.
We have in front of us the list provided by the tax collector. I would suggest that we waive the reading of the individual names on there.
Yes.
But Deb, you want to just talk a little bit about the process and how these folks got to this point?
Okay.
And what we do.
So, when they first become delinquent, every month, they are sent out a notice. We urge them to call if they're finding difficulty in paying their taxes, and we will set something up for them. The people that you see on this list have not made phone calls or barely any payments. So
Have now.
they don't
Me
call
too.
up to arrange to make payments. They've made none at all.
Are there many taxpayers who have done that, call to make payment
Mhm.
arrangements?
Yes,
Right.
there are, and they've
Good.
paid off their accounts.
Mhm.
And, yeah,
Right.
these just most are no responses. The list started out with 25, and we're now down to 11.
11.
11, good,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
And is there time for these taxpayers to make some kind of arrangement before we
No,
actually
they've
go to tax
now
sale?
passed the point of no return,
Okay.
unfortunately.
And when do we anticipate, we have a firm that we've used to
We
do
use
tax.
Pullman and Conley.
Right.
Adam Cohen
Right.
does all the tax sales for the Tax Collectors Association.
Okay.
You're invited to come and watch him. He does a wonderful job. He tries to get as much for the taxpayers. We only get fees, taxes, interest, and liens. And of course, the fees go to the attorney.
Good. Good.
And the overage stays for the tax collector. It'll sit in an account for 6 months.
Okay, anything further? Is there a motion to allow the tax collector to initiate the tax sale on the list of properties that she has supplied to us?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries.
It's okay.
Debbie, thank you very much.
Thank
All right.
Item 11, Board of Ed Director of Operations and Facilities, Cliff Gurnham. Good morning, Cliff.
How are we doing?
We're doing well. How about you?
Great, thanks. Thanks for having me this morning.
You're welcome.
We have 3 items on the list.
Yep. 11.1 is to discuss and take possible action on change order for Silver Petrocelli and Associates for construction administration services for the Baldwin HVAC project.
Yep. So we had removed this from the original proposal in hopes to get a better bid come time after design, and it really was effective. I think it saved us close to almost $9,000 by doing it this way, so it might be something that we look at doing in the future. Silver has done the original design. We are now moving, as of today, we're starting to mobilize into construction for the HVAC work. So we're looking at trying to bring them on to do the construction administration. Again, they work side by side with my office to oversee the project, make sure it runs smoothly, on time, and on schedule. This is a very aggressive project, as we've already mentioned in prior meetings. So to have their help on board is going to be significant. So hopefully we can maintain our schedule and open on time. So again, they're on the on-call bid list,
Yep.
so we're working through that, and we're requesting to award, per the Standing Building Committee, to Silver Petrocelli in the amount of $19,155.
Great. Is there a motion for same?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Comments, questions, et cetera? Hearing none, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. 11.2, consider and take possible action on purchase and installation of cameras at Calvin Lee School, and this is off of the state contract.
Correct. It's under our bid threshold anyways, but they also are on the state bid. They sent me over the number. We went and got proposals from our 2 primary vendors that deal with our camera systems, security systems, and alarm systems. That's ITS and Nationwide Security. In this case, Nationwide Security did come in with the lower proposal at $22,594.21. So the bids were reviewed by the Standing Building Committee, and they did recommend going with Nationwide for the work. This is the first of several projects that will be coming before you guys. We are updating, hopefully, most of the, and it's less updating as it is enhancing. So we're adding cameras, we're adding storage, things of that nature. So the work we've done in the past years is not obsolete. It's merely we're enhancing it to cover more areas and things of that nature. So we will be back probably next month looking at either Melissa Jones or Adams to enhance their camera systems as well. And we hope to get through 3 or 4 of the schools throughout the next several months.
Good. Anything further? Any questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Item 11.3, discuss and take possible action for the installation of a walk-in freezer for the Adams Middle School kitchen.
So the present walk-in freezer, which is actually located out and around the corner from the kitchen, happened to decide it was going to end its life just prior to school, about 2 to 3 weeks prior to school. So we did survive. We brought in a couple spare units and chests that we have, reorganized stuff. So we worked with food service with that. But upon seeing that happen, we are going to reconfigure their kitchen slightly and create a walk-in freezer within their actual kitchen space. So presently in the winter, they have to walk outside with a cart and go get their supplies. They won't have to do that with the new walk-in freezer after we make those adjustments. So we went ahead, we got 3 proposals. Those proposals were reviewed by the Standing Building Committee along with the food service director. Some of the things we looked at were the size. So the 3 vendors, we asked them to build the biggest box capable within the space we had. Some were able to make slightly larger boxes because of their design work. We also compared warranties, what they offered as part of the package. So the one we're going with, Kittredge, they provide full startup, they provide all the plumbing, and basically the install, excluding the electrical. And none of the 3 bidders do any of the electrical because you have to have a certified electrician. We have one on staff, so that's not an issue. We'll do that in-house. But we do prefer them to do all the plumbing work. So Kittredge was able to provide that. They were able to provide the startup. So really they provided the best package overall, even though they weren't lowest bidder. And I think because they weren't lowest bidder, because they provided those package and services. So the Standing Building Committee and the food service director both recommended going with Kittredge in the amount of $24,173.67.
Is there a motion?
So,
And a second?
Second.
Any further comments or questions? Just look at, just one note, this is funded through bond proceeds, bond referendum number 1602 from fiscal year 2016.
Correct.
Which was for these types of improvements.
Correct, yes, yep. And we used the same bond for the freezer at Melissa Jones.
Correct. Wonderful.
And because refrigeration is one of the most energy inefficient,
Right.
I'm assuming that all of these bidders, and including the one we have selected or will select, are the latest and the best as far as efficiency and that type of thing.
Correct, and we try to get an upgraded box. You know, we look at it long-term. This is not a temporary box, this is a long-term box being installed within the school. So we hope to get a 30, 40-year plus life out of it, especially the box.
Are they rated efficiency ratings like so many appliances you buy for your home now? They're all rated and they're all
Yeah,
within
I think the
similar.
rate is slightly different than
Well,
home
they're-
appliance,
yeah.
but yes. Yep.
Okay. But the one we purchased is rated as well as the ones, as any of them that are available.
Correct. It really has to, it comes down to the depth or the thickness of the boxes. Yeah, it does.
Oh, okay.
You
I'm
understand?
thinking of the
That's the
efficiency of the
insulation
mechanism.
Correct.
The insulation
You
factor.
know, the better
Yeah.
insulation, the thicker walls and that type of thing. Yep.
Bringing it inside probably makes a difference too.
It does, yeah. The main thing, just on that point, so the old box was set up with the compressor, condenser on top of the box inside the space it was in. So you're trying to cool the box with the condenser in it. It was kind of fighting itself in a sense, so we won't have that problem going forward with this unit. You know, that unit will be outside, be able to cool itself
So-
naturally and stuff, so, yeah. It should last longer.
Yeah.
All right, is there a motion?
I think we did
We
that.
Oh, we
that.
did, that's
We
right,
did that.
that's right,
Yeah.
referendum, that's right. Call the
We
question?
didn't, Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Cliff, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 12, Sustainable Guilford Task Force, 12.1, consider and take possible action on an amendment to the purchasing policy regarding sustainable purchasing. Howard, would you please come up for a moment? Howard Brown, a member of the Sustainable Guilford Task Force. One of the areas that he's responsible for within the development of our application for certification covers purchasing. So Howard, you just want to talk a little bit about this initiative?
Sure. So purchasing is one of the areas that the Sustainable Task Force is focused on because it's a major area of focus for the Sustainable Connecticut system that is evolving. And we looked into it and decided that it was a high priority for doing first because it's such a no-brainer. It can affect the safety of the kids in the schools, the safety of people who use town facilities, can save money, and it continues to make a statement about the town's commitment to reducing its environmental footprint. I did some considerable research, not just me, but other members of the commission, on what constitutes sustainable policies, and I've personally worked on them for numerous large corporations, multinational corporations, and so I had some experience with it. Found a number of towns that I thought would be good models, most not in Connecticut, and I began to work with Pam Millman, and simultaneously we discovered that the town of Glastonbury had the first and apparently best such purchasing policy in the state. So Pam used that as a model, integrated the thoughts that I had, and came up with the version of the proposal for our policy, which is in front of you, I think.
Wonderful. Thank you, Howard. Just for those in the viewing audience, let me read to you some of the objectives. Policy objectives are to encourage town departments to purchase and use materials, products, and services that best align with the town's fiscal, environmental, social, community, and economic goals. To encourage town departments to conserve natural resources and reduce health and safety risks and the environmental influence of products used in town operations. Also to encourage town departments to eliminate or reduce toxins that create hazards to workers and our community by purchasing products, for example, which use unbleached or chlorine-free manufacturing processes and are lead-free and mercury-free where feasible. Also to encourage town departments to identify and increase the use of environmentally friendly products, to encourage town departments to recycle, to communicate the town's commitment to sustainable procurement, including requesting vendors to identify products and services that align with the town's sustainability goals, and lastly, to encourage town departments to incorporate sustainable procurement into town department specifications for goods and services where appropriate. Now, I know that some folks may immediately come to think, well, is that going to hinder what we do in terms of our purchasing and the delivery of services? There is a line in the policy initiative, and it basically reads, where possible, practical, and cost-effective without reducing quality, safety, or overall workplace effectiveness. So there is a balance there, right? And Howard, thank you for the work that
Sure.
you and Pam have done.
And Pam really was terrific, so I want to say I appreciate her help and really getting on board and making this happen.
Wonderful.
And you too.
Thank you.
Can I make one comment
Certainly.
quickly about implementation? So the policy requires, the Sustainable Connecticut requires that we work, we demonstrate our commitment to sort of doing something about it, and so that's why the policy states that department heads will be responsible for doing research, et cetera, but we anticipate that the task force will be of great help. And we also anticipate collaboration with other towns and eventually to be able to share the knowledge that we gain about products and services and equipment with local businesses. I've talked to Brian McGlone about this, and eventually also to share it with households.
Consumers. Wonderful.
On that note, I forget what section it is, but in this document, it talks about purchasing cooperatives and renewable energy, and it talks about sharing on local, state, and federal level. And on that note, we have a number of businesses with substantial solar arrays at this point, and I'm assuming more are coming as some other development is in the works. Is there a way that the town could share in private? I mean, most of these solar arrays have excess energy, and it's part of the program, the subsidies or whatever it is, that it gets sold back. to,
Net metering.
right, and is there any way that, you know, if we had a park near one of these or a facility near one of these,
We
that we
could
could
share?
share into that?
Well, there is a growing movement in the country, across the country, of energy collaboratives where essentially numerous producers of solar can form a kind of quasi-utility and sell collectively, not only share the energy, but sell collectively to the utility to get better prices than an individual producer could get. Now, sometimes that's done for residential. Some of the installers and manufacturers of equipment and installers actually do that. They can give consumers a better deal because they actually own the equipment, and as such, they can aggregate it to deal with utilities. Connecticut's laws are not completely up to date on this, and so we're going to need to influence.
You know, I would think
the
that'd
state
be
as well.
something worth pursuing, because I know 2 or 3 of the large arrays that already exist privately are near parks and things like that, where, you know, just plugging them in just makes so much sense. But, okay, it's
Yeah,
something to
no,
work on.
No, I think that's,
Yeah.
it's a great idea, and I'll take it to the task force. Thank you.
Good.
Anything else?
I'm good. Thank you. Is there a motion to amend the purchasing policy as defined in the document that has been provided to us?
So moved.
A
Second.
Any further discussion? Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Howard, thank you for your work on this.
Thank you.
Item 13. Economic Development Coordinator Brian McGlone, who is here to discuss and take possible action on a 5-town project to create a mini regional economic development opportunity. In fairness, I will disclose that I was part of a couple of the early meetings of this organization. It's a grassroots group of folks that was put together originally at the urging of a local developer. And it dates back to, I believe, the fall of 2018, late summer, fall of 2018. But it has started to take on some inertia, and it is actually a group. Brian, I'm going to turn it over to you at this point.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Yeah, and I did put a little write-up about what we're calling, for lack of a better term right now, the Central Coast Coalition. So the 5 towns that we're talking about are Madison, Guilford, Brantford, North Brantford, and Durham. So we're looking at some regionalization efforts and kind of breaking our larger 15-town region, the South Central region, down into a smaller group where we think we could work and promote some of the assets that we have here. And while a lot of things happen within the central region, there's the belief that we should try to put a little bit more emphasis on our local region. We also recognize and realize that, you know, companies don't just look at a single town when they're looking to move. They look at a region, the workplace facilities, labor pool, transportation, education, and we feel another attribute, of course, is the quality of life and lifestyle. And in our early discussions, we all talked about lifestyle as one of the strengths of our mini region, whether it's the town character, the hiking trails, the access to water, and all the things we all know and love. But we think that could be promoted stronger in trying to attract different companies to come here and work and live in our region. And even some of the local companies that we have, the CEO lives in the region and his or her business is here. So, you know, we see that and we think that could be expanded on. So as Matt said, we've had a couple of meetings, and probably one of the outcomes of that was we feel we need to engage a consultant to help us. Whether it's the time that each individual can dedicate towards this, volunteer commissions that are involved. So we want to engage a consultant to help us to really facilitate some of the meetings, make sure data collection is in a consistent fashion and digested, and then help us with some of the, I say, strategic visioning of how should we try to promote
our region, defining our goals, better understand our regional attributes, start to think about branding and how would we promote, whether, again, the Central Coast Coalition is what we've been calling it to date. That might not be the long-term name. So again, developing that strategic roadmap, looking at types of companies that we think could fit here that we would try to move out and try to recruit and bring them here. So an RFP was developed, and I will say that a couple individuals from Madison have been the chair people thus far, so they were the ones that took the lead on looking at an RFP with collaboration from all the other towns, including myself. And a concerning firm has been identified and could help us with phase one in defining some of these early goals that I talked about. And the first phase is, I say, only $3,600 for having a couple strategic sessions, facilitating a couple sessions where we're bringing a couple of key people together. And Matt asked, of course, myself, and we also have George Kroll as our town planner, is the Guilford team that is working on this. And the other teams have similar people involved. But we are asking for up to $5,000 per town, assuming everything moves forward, and we want to develop this branding, logo design, and we see a brochure, a website, a video types of tools to help us promote our five-town region that we would use on a recruiting basis to bring other companies in. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And
Is this in addition to our existing efforts?
yes, yes. I mean, as we all know, we are part of the central region, and frankly, the Rex Group does promote the Greater New Haven Visitor and Relocation Guide, and we participate in this, and our businesses are located in this. They do other things. I mean,
Well, you brought up Rex, and that's where my question's coming from. And
Sure.
we're just going, this is over and above.
well, it's over and above. We're going to be working with them because they have a lot of the data too that we would want to use.
I'm
but-
just looking
but-
at it from a budget perspective,
Yeah.
because, it's another 50% over, we just came out of the budget cycle a few months ago.
Well, and truthfully, that's why I'm here. This wasn't conceived when we developed our budget, and this would be incremental monies, whether it goes under my budget or Matt's general budget somewhere. This $5,000 wasn't in the original budget, and that's what I'm looking to try to.
Yeah, but it's not 5, it's 6 plus 5 now.
Well, with Rex, you're right. I think-
Well, it's our investment in economic
economic-
development, da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
And my concern a little bit is, we have to be realistic. I mean, this is not a state where people are lined up and we're making choices and things like that. And is this a direction that we really want to be spending these kinds of dollars on effectively marketing something that, we're spending a lot of money on marketing. That's what it comes down to. And, is it real? I mean, are we getting anything for our dollars? Do we ever see a return? I know, economic development is important. I used to chair the commission, and I understand all that. But, we're talking effectively marketing. And, how many brochures do we have to put, on the turnstiles?
Well, I think this is larger than sticking brochures on the rest areas in the highway, Charlie. This is identifying a target audience of potential business owners, appealing to lifestyle choices that people make relative to where they want to live, raise their families, and run their businesses. So it's a little bit different angle, and it's designed to try to attract those companies that are currently very, very hot targets for millennials to live in. For those who may recall or saw recently, the New Haven Milford area is among the leading locations in the country the realtors have determined that they are among the leading, New Haven, Guilford area, is among the leading areas for millennials to move to throughout the country. Migration pattern into New Haven. These are the kind of workforce folks that we think, that this group thinks we may be able to attract.
I understand that, but the perspective is the millennials are coming here to work and enjoy our lifestyle, not businesses coming to invest in them. That's the difference of what I'm saying here.
Well-
We're talking marketing towards businesses versus individuals coming here to enjoy, whether it be, what Yale has to offer in technology and research and existing businesses, and those are people coming here to enjoy a lifestyle that generations have created. What we're talking about here is investing in marketing to bring businesses here.
Correct.
And my suggestion is, and I haven't made up my mind anyway, just that, I see a migration towards spending more and more money on marketing, and I'm questioning whether, growing what we have here might be a better source of making it a more attractive way. I mean, to pretend that we're going to have major corporations come because we put a brochure in a turnstile, I really have to struggle with that mentality at this point in time. I mean,
Well, and I agree, but I mean, what Matt said is, I mean, we are, as part of this process, literally trying to identify companies, and then we will be soliciting, meeting with them, trying to bring them here. It's not going to be just throw a brochure at them. That part of this initiative would be to clearly try to identify.
I would almost rather try to grow what's here than pretend that we're going to attract other businesses. I mean,
No, that's a good comment, and we recognize that. I mean, let's talk about Rothberg as an example. I mean, in my opinion, he would be the type of company that we would want to try to attract.
right, but you're not attracting it, you're growing and existing.
We are.
Okay, that's my point, is that, we have a lifestyle in an area that for generations have worked very hard to maintain an attractive area. And to pretend that, we are at a point in our state where major businesses or major employers or major taxpayers are going to be encouraged to move here, I find that a struggle at this point in time. I think we'd be better spent, our money would be better spent taking care of what we have and growing what we have. That's my perspective.
One of the things that I found attractive about this is, unlike the money we're investing in recs, and again, we can have a longer term conversation at some point about the validity of continuing to utilize recs, but this is highly targeted. These are dollars that are targeted at our specific.
That's why I wanted to know where we're going here. I mean, because we're doubling our economic development marketing budget. Period.
And again, I think in large measure, there's been, quite honestly, at this board and the Board of Finance, there's been questions about the validity of of spending money with recs, because it was a 15-town region where presumably most of the
Tangible
focus
results.
is on.
I mean, all I want to see is some tangible results. And I'm not saying they're not doing their job, but, they're doing their job, it seems, or their goals seem to be different than ours. And I hate to be selfish about it, but at some point you got to be realistic. I mean, our dollars, our tax dollars, are just too valuable to squander on things that would be nice to have, but what are we getting back? What's the return? What's the point?
Well, I mean, it is hard to quantify, but I mean, how many people that work at Yale New Haven Hospital or Yale University live in Guilford?
That's my point. Grow what we have. Don't pretend that we're going to have another university move into New Haven. I mean, it's just not going to happen. We had a couple opportunities where, the University of New Haven could have grown. Those opportunities are gone.
Well, I think generally speaking, our focus is more potentially in the biotech, science regions, software
Growing what we
development.
have.
I agree, but we're trying to find some other companies like that could be a 5 or 10 or 15 employee company today, and in a matter of 3 to 5 years, are 80 or 100 people. And
Yeah,
They're
and
gonna be in
again,
Connecticut.
well, again,
When
Charlie,
they grow that big, they don't have to be here anymore.
I want to make a distinction here. You had mentioned a couple of times major corporations. That's not what we're trying to do. We're not going to bring Amazon to Guilford. What
Right.
we're talking about is folks that are, entrepreneurs with small companies that could grow, could be in the 10 to 50 or 75. We're not talking about substantially large private, not private corporations, but
And I
publicly
understand
traded
that
corporations.
completely, and that's why I like the focus of a smaller nucleus group,
Yeah.
and that's why I jumped to the question of, we're doubling a marketing budget, and
Right. And there were some who would say, we're not spending enough. What are you gonna get for $6,000 in terms of marketing? And I think that's part of what
you
this
gotta
discussion.
pick your target and do it. I mean, you could spend $6,000 in an extremely targeted way with research before you start, hiring PR people. I mean, there's different ways to do this.
well, the consulting firm is not just the PR piece. They're going to work with us to work on the target kind of companies as well, then develop the tools that we think will resonate the most with those types of targeted companies.
Okay, who would, if we were to authorize out of some
To be
line
determined,
of
to be
the budget
determined.
to be
Brian
determined,
actually has some.
who
money.
is going to choose to spend? Is it each time going to come back to us? I mean, who's going to spend that money if we put it in?
I mean, ultimately, I'm asking for the authorization to be able to spend the money.
Right.
Up to the $5,000.
Right.
No. I'm talking. You're talking $3,000 to $5,000 times 5.
Right.
Okay, I mean, yeah, within the 5 towns, it's a $25,000 budget.
Who's going to spend that money?
I'm not sure I understand. I mean,
They're
the
going to
5 towns,
Say they have $25,000, okay, and they get 5 proposals. Who's going to make the decision which proposal they take?
the committee members.
Of which Brian and
which-
George
yeah,
are members.
George and I.
Okay, so we're going to have 1, 2 out of 10 votes.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, each town has 2 people dedicated. I mean, we're trying to have a good representation, but we're also trying to have a workable group of 10 people and not have 25 people trying to do those things.
Anything further?
Yeah,
So-
what do you see happening after the initial year? We have an initial budget request of 3 to 5, which we know means 5, and some year 1 objectives. What happens after year 1?
Well, hopefully we'll be in a position to, demonstrate results. I mean, we haven't gone that far to say how much, how much are we gonna need forever? The 25,000, I mean, based on our discussions with the consulting firm, because the consulting firm we looked at has the capability to do the logo work and the video and the other tools we wanna get. So, I mean, we see that as a cap budget at this point in time and use it to try to attract some of these businesses. And so, I mean, I don't see us, we haven't thought, oh, geez, in year 2, we're gonna need another 25,000. I guess if that's the way you question.
I do think that you would want to look ahead past 1 year for something like this.
Well, even okay, I mean, we want to get together as the committee and define things a little tighter to see how we proceed. It probably is a 2 or 3 year plan, but hopefully a lot of the tools that get developed will sustain themselves over that period, and we don't see a
Give
lot
me an
of extra
example
money.
of how results would sustain. I mean, you don't expect income from marketing.
No, but I mean, we're hoping that we will be able to say, hey, here's the 10 firms we went out and targeted, and one of them came to roost. Now, maybe that company decided to move to North Branford or Branford, but, when I say we get spillover effect in this region with people coming for housing, that's how we would start to measure how effective we are or we are. No, they're not going to be paying anything into our fund.
I see this as a conversation we'll be having during budget time, when we're looking at where are we gonna spend our economic development dollars? Are we gonna continue to invest in recs? Is this gonna be something that could either supplement recs or replace recs? Very, very clearly, that would be part of the discussion. I know Brian doesn't like to hear that. He's in terms of
I haven't done a
defending
good,
recs.
I mean, and Charlie, I guess it's, maybe it is a lot of feel-good kind of stuff, but if we weren't doing some of these things for the broader good, the 15 towns, I mean, I can't say that there's a particular company Rex has brought to us. Brantford has benefited some of the biotech firms that have gone to Brantford, were Rex initiatives. Are some of those people living in Guilford that ended up in Brantford? Yeah.
I
yeah.
agree completely. Having a coalition of these towns make a lot of sense because we have a lot of things in common and we have a lot of things we could offer together to somebody. Okay, what I struggle with is, and I remember back when I chaired EDC, I mean, we spent money on videos, we spent money on folders and brochures and things like that, and I really struggle with spending dollars for those kinds of things versus spending dollars on yourself, on equal or comparable positions throughout the other towns, and the towns working together and having these conversations. I struggle with spending the money on marketing and brochures and that type of thing. I really do. I think working together, having conversations, meeting, research, reaching out, and those kinds of things are invaluable. Or sharing information and those kinds of things are invaluable. I just, we don't need another logo. We don't need another folder. We just, the value, in my mind, from experience, is just too limited to spend $25,000. Potentially spend $25,000. I mean, each one of those towns has a brochure. I'm sure we do.
Can't we have this little postcard?
What do you need when you're talking face to face or having a telephone conversation or something, in social media and the rest of it? I mean, how many people, a business card is what they use in Japan. I mean, face-to-face conversation.
That's
And
true.
we're investing in individuals. I'm sure each one of those towns is investing in individuals, and I support that completely. I struggle with logos and folders, and I just struggle with it.
Have the other 4 towns committed the funds?
Yes.
Exception, North Branford is yet to commit the funds.
No, for this they have.
I thought.
No, there's some question
I thought
about
Michael
them.
said that he had to get approval tomorrow at one of their meetings. I know Durham has approved it. I know Madison's approved it.
Okay.
And Branford.
I
I think I
mean,
saw
I
an
know
email
in
that
print- okay.
Michael Paulus is intending to have it supported. He hasn't officially gotten the financial
Oh, okay.
backing, but he intends to get that this
I
week.
think he's verbally gotten a commitment. Maybe he hasn't gone in front of his
His
selectmen or
board.
his group.
And is our commission supportive of this?
Yes. Yeah.
Where would our funds come?
Brian's got some. You've identified some money already, right?
I have right now about $1,000, maybe a little bit more.
Okay.
What would that do to your existing
Well,
efforts?
It's reallocated.
Between now and the end of June,
Right.
not much. I could use, and that, I can encumber that money in this project, that 1,000, that I don't have other things right now. I mean, as the year has gone by.
Where would the other 2 to 4 come from?
We'd need to work with Mary Jane as we're going through the budget to see where we're going to have surplus. We could transfer some funds at some point, but we're gonna find $3,000 to $5,000 is. Yeah.
I understand, but how many?
Understood.
Yeah, just philosophical difference,
It's-
I guess,
I
as
think
to
so. I think
how
so.
to, it sounds like a lot of money, and on the other hand, it's not a lot of money.
Right.
So you were looking for approval at this meeting?
That's what I was hoping for.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any benefit to, well, we don't have a motion to table, but
No.
can further discussion before we vote on it, or, I don't know, I don't wanna break our record.
Don't worry about that. That is
I
one
know,
that
no,
will
no,
not
no.
be sustainable
That's
over
right.
the long term, so
Right.
that's not the consideration here. So, I'd be willing to put it to a vote at this point. If it doesn't pass, it doesn't pass. And we'll go back to the task force and let them know that it hasn't, if that's the case. So, unless folks think they need a little more information or a little more discussion on it, I'm happy to.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion, okay. I'm going to move approval of $3,000, okay?
Okay.
That's the lower limit, number one, okay? And I do that with grave reservations. I fully support the concept of these 5 towns working together for mutual benefit of economic development, okay? I am opposed to spending any more money. I mean, maybe some limited money, whether it be some business cards or some palm cards or something, just describing this Central Coast Coalition, that it exists and that type of thing, but certainly not to the level of $25,000. I would rather see those funds utilized for reaching out to targeted potential existing and potential complementary enterprises for this area.
And so basically, I think that's a motion to
Well,
approve
okay,
3,000 for this
and
initiative.
maybe I'm, as part of the budget, we were trying to get, the 25 isn't all just the brochures and collateral. I mean, and that's where we haven't fully
Well, that's
defined
part
our
of our
budget.
struggle, and that's why I went with the lowest limit, because I think, I'm trying to say in my motion that I agree that 5 towns working together could be valuable, okay? But I'm also saying that you need to do some work, to Susan's point, on a plan. I mean, I hate those words, plans and things like that, but it just seems a little too loosey-goosey right now. And I don't wanna, just say, okay, you can have the money, go spend it. And I'm not overly enthusiastic about the vision at this point in time.
Charlie, I appreciate the compromise you're willing to make, and I will second that motion that we spend up to 3,000 at this point, pending the development of the materials and the program. Correct?
Yeah. I encourage you to come back with some more defined ideas that we can be I could be more enthusiastic.
Good.
I'll give you my business card on the way out.
Save it
else?
for a separate prospect.
Anybody else? All right, we have a motion on the table, call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you.
And we'll work towards the allocation. Brian has already committed $1,000 out of his existing budget, so. Thank you, thank you.
Okay, thanks you.
Item 14, Environmental Planner Kevin McGee. 14.1 is to consider and take possible action to continue the deer management program at the East River Preserve this fall, and then conduct a review of the program. Good morning, Kevin.
Morning.
Floor is yours.
We have completed 3 years of the dam management program with activities happening in 2016, 2017, 2018 during the fall of those months. The deer management hunt was conducted basically between October 15th and November 15th in the fall there. It's done from sunrise to 11:30 in the morning, and all the hunters are required to be off the property at 11:30 unless they have some issue or need to retrieve their deer where they're required to notify our office that they're gonna be in the woods a little bit longer than the cutoff times. I put together a report of the past 3 years' activities.
Okay.
I'm not sure if the commission got a chance to look at, because it went out Friday to you all. As part of the original GR management report, it listed elements to be evaluated on the every 3-year period of time. Impact on vegetation, impact on other wildlife, impact on the deer population, impact on the recreational use of the property, neighborhood impacts, hunter safety and violations, results of charitable donations to food banks, and the cost of the program. So on the impact of vegetation, during the period of time we installed 3, or actually it's a total of 4 deer enclosures on the property. One was at one location which got destroyed, and we figured it was too close to public, so we moved it to another area, which ended up getting found and destroyed also. So we ended up with 2 for a period of time, and then 1 just before the sampling period got damaged by storm event, trees falling on top of it, where the deer is actually able to go in there and kind of mess up the results of that one area on the Podunk Road area. So we actually had 1 fully enclosed exposure for the whole period of time, which was off of the Podunk Road area. The measurements within that, and then I basically considered that the control group with that 1 that survived the whole period of time. Within that control group, the average growth within that 3-year period of time, or height of the vegetation was roughly 39 inches, compared to about 22 inches throughout the rest of the area without the control of the area there. Samples were taken at 2 other random locations within the preserve there, which is over 500 acres there. We also utilized our sample of plot, which was being researched by the Connecticut Agricultural Experimentation, where they did a clearing. There was a bad forestry practice in there, and they came in and did some cleanup of it and research where they were actually going to monitor regrowth from stumps. Fortunately, there wasn't much regrowth from the stumps there because of deer were eating basically the growth coming off of it. They're hoping for the regrowth there. Also in that area, they also planted, for sort of controls, there were also a group of pine trees. Several of them were loose, several of them were encased within a plastic shield. There's one currently in the shield there which had about a 45-foot high growth on it, where the vegetation is intact. The other pines that they planted when that area are all chewed down to about a elevation of 23 or so inches there. Several were still higher in that growth area, but the chewing was down to that lower limit. So you can see the height. Some of them were actually higher than that 45 inches. Some were about 60 inches, but the growth was just chewed fairly close to the ground there. And then another basically random spot that I picked up north of the power lines, and then an area along the field. So for the public, I know you guys have the mapping plan there for the public. There are 5 locations, 1 on the southern portion near Duck Hole Road, up along Podunk Road, another one along the Bear House Road Trail, another one a little bit further up near the edge of the field, up south of the power lines, and the one north of the power lines. So there's 6 areas sampled within that region. So it wasn't just a one spot on the property or everything sampled in one just corner of the property. The results are kind of spread out through the preserve there. So then the report also said to look at impact on wildlife there. The hunters out there did notice the presence of coyotes, hawks, owls, mink, flying squirrels, a variety of songbirds. They note down the next section there, they need to create better forms for them to create the general wildlife observances while they're out there. A couple of them provided me copies of their trail camera information, which I need to download down and analyze, but they did report there's a large amount of presence of deer and other wildlife captured on these cameras they have out there. Over the past 3 years, we, 2016, actually over the past 3 years, roughly there were 19 deer harvested from the property. The first year in 2016, there was 3 buck, 4 doe. 2017, 3 buck and 3 doe. In 2018, there was 3 buck and 3 doe also removed from the property. With the number of hunters and stuff in there, they seem to be somewhat low numbers there, but you have to remember they're, it seems like once a month they're out there. They're only there on days when school is not in session, so you lose the 2 weekend days, and then you also lose, there's 1 day off from school that the preserve was also closed on, so your numbers were even being restricted down even further down. So as I noted before, there was when the daily reporting by the participants was somewhat limited, and hopefully in the next years, if we move forward with this, get a reporting form attached with all the other handouts that they get at the start of the program there. Impact on recreational use of the property. The property is noticed about a month ahead of time that this activity is going to be conducted, with signage at all the trail entrances. There's some remote trails where it comes in from land trust trails into our property, where we actually have the signage when we connect between the 2 property on those trails, and also at the parking lot entrances we have the signs there. And we also put out a notice in the local newspapers regarding the program, and it's also put up on the town's social media pages there for the public. The land stewards on my part-time staff there on a daily basis while the hunt is in progress do go check the parking areas, and we do note who's out there, so we actually have a list of how many days each hunter is out on the property. Then they also follow up later in the afternoon to make sure they're out of the property, and if they are on the property, we do call them to find out what their circumstance is. The hunters did report at their post-hunt meetings with us and the Conservation Commission that they do get very positive interaction with the public that's out there. There really isn't anything negative. The only one negative we had was somebody that actually vandalized our signage, and that was turned over to the police department and taken care of through the police department there. The part of the thing, I think the public out there probably doesn't realize they're even out there because of the safety that's built into the program. The hunters have to be at least 250 feet from a marked trail that's on the trail maps there. So they're back off the woods quite a bit, where the public really doesn't know, can't really see them out there. Neighborhood impact, we haven't really had any complaints or anything sent to my office or the Conservation Commission regarding the program. Did within the receive a letter from one of the neighbors indicating during one of the things for the Conservation Commission that they did see large numbers of deer still through their property at one of the year updates. So that's the only sort of impact that I got. Hunter safety and violation. The hunters, the program was built with, like I indicated, with all these safeties built into it. Program not going on when the school's in progress. Hunters being so far away from the trails and also away from each of the hunters. The hunters are required to take a proficiency testing where they have to shoot from, I have them set up on an elevated platform where they shoot and have to hit inside of a 10-inch diameter circle. So they have to get 4 out of 5 arrows into that. Some do stop at 4 because they're such good marksmen that their arrows get really close together, and arrows are very expensive, so they don't want to split arrows. They, after the ones that do complete that go through that step, and they all have been able to qualify through that step, go to a safety program which I hold at the police department, which then I go over basically the deer management program that's been approved, how they kind of fit into it. Because I want them to understand that this is not a hunting program, that they are part of a larger goal for the property of reducing the deer on the property so we can actually improve the vegetation and other wildlife on the property there. So after that meeting, they're all handed out their passes, their permits for the property, and if they have any questions, we kind of clarify them at those meetings there. And it gives a good chance for the hunters themselves to a second chance for them to meet up with each other and get to know each other. And also, as part of that, we also notify them of the property boundaries of where they are allowed to hunt, where they can't hunt, because there's some confusion of people thinking land trust is town property, so I kind of reinforce them that land trust is private property and they can't be hunting on the land trust piece of property there. There's been no reports of any charitable donations of meat to the food bank, and by those numbers, you can see there really wasn't much harvested from the property there. The cost of the program is pretty much in salaries. I don't have numbers to these to quantify these out at this point in time, but if we need to, we can generate them. But overall cost, and actually I don't really keep good time that I put on to things. I just kind of jump into something, do it, move on to something else. So it's some of them are hard to quantify all the way out. A lot of the time is my time, especially in the beginning of setting up the program, getting the permits together, the applications together, the car signage, the notification for the newspapers, the signs for the property put together there. And then putting together the presentation for the informational meeting with hunters. And there's, like I said, there's a huge upfront time, but now it's basically now just updating the information on a yearly basis, which takes probably a couple hours a year now, since it's just now changing out 2017 to 2018 to 2019 and a lot of the information there. And then time of the land stewards going around and checking who's out there each morning there. And then my administrative assistants for basically when the applications come in, get those all put into an Excel sheet there. The police department's time, my understanding was the time of basically investigating that report of that vandalism there. And then the time for our staff to actually, knowing from the previous year there's vandalism out there, we kind of put security around that area where we have trail cameras, so we put around the area where those kiosks are, and we're able to capture the person doing the vandalism there, which was then passed on to the police department. And then we did get restitution for the time of the land stewards and the cost of material we used to fix up the damage there.
Nice.
As my conclusion of the property, actually, the deer management program also created a rating system for the program of A, B, C, and F. The A being the program has resulted in noticeable improvement of the ecosystem, but there's been continued evidence of excessive destruction of deer overpopulation and renewal in 3 years. Program has resulted in minimal improvement and has no adverse consequences. Action is to modify the program and renew for 3-year extension if noticeable improvements after 6 years, and then move it down to an F grade. C, there is not evidence of excessive destruction of the ecosystem, and that's basically suspend the program and review in 3 years from that time. And F, the program has not resulted in improved ecosystem or adverse consequences outweigh the benefits and the termination of the program. Based on my review of the program, I graded the thing as a B. The program resulted in minimal improvement of wildlife and has no adverse consequences. There is still evidence of excessive destruction of deer overpopulation, and the program should be extended for 3 years with modifications to extend the deer management sessions. So if anybody has any questions.
So the modification is to make that late season in January?
Yeah, create that late season is one of the ones recommended is the late season in January. It might entice also more people participating because there is no other program going on, the rifle season's over with, so it's, that becomes, my understanding, that becomes just a bow season for that two weeks towards the beginning of January. The colder weather sometimes improves a little bit more for the hunters there. Right now, they're telling me is that part of the problem, what we ran into this past year, it was still sort of warm when we started off the program, and also the rut started early, so the deer were running around and they weren't really wandering and eating their pass that they usually do there. So it's a toss up how it goes there. But the recommendation is to look at the adding the January period there. There's thought during that period of time there are less users on the property due to the colder temperatures there.
Because you said it's still, it's still deer overpopulation.
Correct,
so
yeah.
this might help. I'm sorry for my ignorance.
Sure.
Did this whole project go through the conservation? I mean, this recommendation, is it just coming from you?
That just came from me with a review. They have their 3-year, I mean, each year they have their reviews, which I put into the
Okay.
summary there, and then I placed that recommendation
So are they,
on there.
they're in agreement with this?
They've been in agreement with the increase in the program.
Okay.
Each year they had their annual meeting with the hunters. So each year they're looking forward to the increasing it. They made their recommendation the first year to the group there. However, the selectmen at that point in time wanted the program to carry out for 3 years before any changes, but each year they did keep up bringing the need to expand the program there.
Well, there was a lot of time and effort into this original plan, I remember.
Yeah, I mean, we had the original,
remember it.
we had the original deer management plan, which was developed, which had a lot of controversy behind
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So then the Board of Selectmen at that time created the subcommittee.
Yeah.
Which had, and we interviewed a number of people for that program, several members in favor of deer management, several members which were sort of on the fence, and several members which were totally against it. So they had a very large collaborative
Yeah.
discussion, which created the detailed safety that was placed into the program there.
Looking back over the 3 years with the harvest of 19, which I thought would have been more over a 3-year period, with the state of the vegetation now, do you have a feel for how much larger the harvest should have been in order to be in a better position now? I mean, double that, or did you have any kind of a goal, or? Not really.
It's hard to really come up with a goal
Yeah.
because deer aren't really captive. I mean,
Mhm.
they're like grazing for different areas, and each year it depends on what the food supply is and where it is, and the nut harvest and stuff all come into play there. A lot of times they're saying that the evening may be better than the morning after they're woken up. There's sometimes more wandering towards the evening hours and grazing, so it's it could be just part of how we timed the program out there.
And then wondering too about the applicants. If we were going to take up to 20, how many, did we fill the 20 slots, or were there
This
people?
past
were
year, we did not
turning-
fill the 20 slots.
Okay, so we're not turning people away.
We're not turning people around, and
Okay.
actually,
Okay.
even when they had the full 20, they all didn't show up, and I think we had about just over half of them actually actively hunted. And then we actually probably have, out of those actively hunted, we probably have about a half dozen which are probably out there almost on a daily basis, or at least once or twice a week out there. We had a half dozen. Several, and once the first year after they signed up, they never even showed up by our car counts and stuff there. I actually find almost the lower numbers, there was actually no increase in the deer harvest. And sometimes you almost wonder if too many people out there are stirring them up, and the sense from them are kind of pushing them away. So almost is the number, having a larger number, actually going against us in some ways.
I've been involved a little bit with the Water Authority. I think some of this plan was modeled after some of their research, and it appears that it's cyclical. I mean, whatever reason, the weather, hunters may or may not show up and that type of thing. The only difference that I've noted is that we at the Water Authority, have kind of gone to the point of what would be the ideal harvest and what the acreage
Should
ideally,
yield.
and even that is a very subjective number. I don't know if we're there yet, but, to your point, it's hunting in nature. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't,
Not an experiment.
you can't pick a number and say you gotta get that. That
Yeah.
isn't the way it works. So I think just having it be managed so that it is a public friendly, so
Yeah,
somehow
safe.
we get this balance between the hunting and the public wanting to use, because, it is parkland that we're using.
Yeah.
And that's
So-
why, to that point there, that's why the vegetation and wildlife were the factors to be studied with that. Because you start seeing the vegetation come back and some other wildlife coming in there. Okay, we might be having that balance where you might be able to stop
Yeah,
the program for
we
a
had
you
pic-
years, and if it starts going down again, you start bringing in
You
the
see
program. That's why
pictures
it's
of
built
those
into it.
kinds of tests and control areas. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
Areas that are accessible to deer or not accessible, the difference is remarkable.
Huh.
I don't know whether that's good or bad, because then you get the invasive plants, which
Right.
is what, that's what we're addressing now at the water.
Right.
So we're looking for a motion to approve the tri-annual East River Preserve Deer Management Report.
As well as extend the deer
Extending
management.
it through
Extending,
at least the 3 years
years.
if
Okay.
I'm looking for, or if you,
And a modification to the
And a
deer
modification
management
to it,
season,
yeah.
to the season.
to the season,
To include 2 weeks in January?
correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's reasonable.
So
See-
moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Kevin, thank you very much for
Thank
that
you.
You're welcome.
thorough
Yeah.
report on this.
Great.
Interesting.
Appreciate it. Item 15, discuss and take possible action on programs that shall be included on a list pursuant to Chapter 228A of the Connecticut General Statutes Neighborhood Assistance Act as a result of earlier public hearing. And I think everyone has since left. We outlasted them.
Do we have a written motion on that, or you just move that we approve?
Just move that we approve them as presented
So-
to us. In a second,
Second.
and I call the question,
So,
all in favor?
I just have a question.
Sure.
So if we're including them on a list, what does that mean? Are we endorsing them
We are
necessarily?
endorsing their
or-
applications,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
We're endorsing their
Okay.
applications.
And there were no other applicants?
Yeah,
besides
life
ours?
links, 2 from Sarah and 1 from Women and Family Life Center.
Alright.
Good. Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. Item 16, consider and take possible action on noise control ordinance variance applications for the shift to the summit event at the Guilford Fairgrounds taking place June 22nd, 2019. Anybody want to put it in form of a motion? This is,
Well-
this is
Question.
Lieutenant Bernier, and this is his, I believe this is related to his,
Well, what exactly is the exception?
It's not gonna go to, it's not gonna be on the fairgrounds, I
No.
don't think. It's gonna be
Right.
965 Boston
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 Post.
Post
Road.
Road, right.
Because the
Yeah.
police chief approved it, but just
Right.
said, be sure there's enough parking.
So
So I
it's
think it's a
moved
business.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was my mistake, it is not, I put the
Wrong title on it.
It says it's a
Right.
fitness charity event, business open house. But this has to do with the,
noise
Um,
level.
I think that's shift cycling, isn't it?
Yeah, must be.
And Lieutenant Bernier is very active. In fact, I attended, very active in the Special Olympics of Connecticut. I attended their annual dinner where he received an award for the amount of, for the significant contributions he's made in fundraising in support of Connecticut Special Olympics. This is part of his fundraising effort. He is going to be climbing Mount Kilimanjaro and raising money as a result of him doing that.
So, but is it the times that are
Yeah.
the issue?
And noise levels
Noise
also.
level.
they're gonna
Because
have
they're gonna
a-
have music and
There's noise
the
levels
cyclists.
at day and at night,
Uh-huh.
and in case they go above the ones during the day.
Okay,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
Saturday afternoon.
Right.
it's,
And
it's
they,
just
what they do
12
is they
to
take,
4.
they take all this, the cycles and they put them out in the
Isn't
parking lot.
1200 to 1600 at 6 o'clock?
No,
No,
4,
yeah,
it's
8
12
o'clock.
to 4, because the difference between 12 and 16 is 4. It's 12 o'clock to 4
Yeah, it's
o'clock.
12 to 4.
Yeah.
Unless it's 12 midnight to 4 a.m., but I don't think
That's what
so.
I'm saying, it's in
It's
the
the middle of the
afternoon.
It's in the
So
afternoon,
what's-
yeah.
So,
There's still noise levels within,
even in the
during
afternoon?
daytime, yes.
Oh, I knew we had them in the
They're
evening.
obviously, lesser, but.
Right.
And this is not gonna be at the fairground, or it
No,
is?
it's at,
not.
it's
It's
at
at Shift
965
Cycling.
Boston
Yeah.
Post Road.
Yeah, it's not the fairgrounds.
Right.
Where, what, give me a land.
That Shift, right across, right next to the old
It's a-
Friendlies. Shift's, Shift Cycling
Yeah,
Studio.
it's on State Street,
Corner of, yeah.
corner station.
Yeah, upstairs there,
Yeah.
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 So
You
the-
have a band there? I mean, how many people can be in there? All right, okay, I'm ready to vote.
Yeah. I mean-
Inquiring minds wanna know.
Yeah. Just one other question about this. The letter to the neighbors that was sent to the neighbors on June 1st states that the variance has been applied for and granted? In the
Yeah,
second
well,
paragraph?
I think the chief signed it, that's
But it
what.
had to come to the board of selectmen as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's
And they may not send out the letter.
Granted by town hall.
I think they're considering it to have been. All right, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Item 17, appointments and resignations. 17.1, act on a recommendation to appoint Judith Keough to the Human Rights Commission for a term to expire June 30th, 2023. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second? Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. 17.2, act on a recommendation to appoint Donna Daniels to the Human Rights Commission for a term to expire June 30th, 2023. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And I call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Act on 17.3, act on a recommendation to appoint Clarice Yasashura to the Human Rights Commission for a term to expire June 30th, 2023. I'd like to make that motion, as Clarice is here today. Clarice is one of the original, I want to call them instigators, but one of the three folks that originally came to me to look to set this up. And I want to thank her for having stuck with it this long, because we're about a year, we're over a year, I think, since we first started having these discussions, but finally it's happening. And is there a second?
Second.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. And it's too bad your son didn't hear it, but he'll learn about it from his mother, I'm sure, at some point. Right? 17.4, act on a recommendation to appoint Maureen Rouchy to the Human Rights Commission for a term to expire June 30th, 2021. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carried. 17.5, act on a recommendation to appoint Andy Gottlieb to the Human Rights Commission for a term to expire June 30th, 2021. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. 17.6, act on a recommendation to appoint Jack Evans to the Human Rights Commission for a term to expire June 30th, 2023. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Second, call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. I would like to note that we still have I think 3 slots available on that commission. And for those in the viewing audience who would like to participate, we've been through the respective political parties, and we have come up with the list that is here. We will take applications directly in the Selectmen's office, in addition to going through the respective political parties. Again, independents who don't have political parties are welcome to, or unaffiliated voters, excuse me, are welcome to participate as well.
I have a request to make about future appointments, not related to any of this, but I've brought this up in the past, and I hate to split hairs, but we're voting to act on recommendations. And out of these 6 individuals, in only one case is the paperwork presented to us as a recommendation. The others are an application form. I would like to see on the application form a spot where the party making the recommendation can actually do so, like sign and date. It's uncomfortable
Well, we need 2 forms then, because we need a form for folks who would apply who are not going through a party.
Sure.
And then we'll have one for the.
No, because
respective
even the
voters.
ones that are not coming through a party still should fill out an application form.
But you're saying that it needs to be noted that the party, the recommendation is from the town committee.
Yeah, just a little space at the bottom, a
She
line.
put up on the DPW want to say more than
It's,
that.
well, yeah,
Okay.
and the thing is,
Yeah.
I don't know these people personally for the most part, and so I would trust a recommendation from the DTC, but seeing DTC written in the top
Right.
corner, to me, that's not I would like to see a more formal recommendation
I will
from.
let her know.
Just add a line to
that
the
I can
bottom of
rely
the
on.
application.
Yeah, or even if it's informal, like one of them
Or like
is
a
an
letter,
email, and
an
it's in,
email.
it's clear, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I'll let
That's
her
fine.
know, sure.
I agree. We did talk about this before.
Yeah.
And this, even though it does say DTC on it, I think
I
that,
will.
because
I'll
usually,
let those
usually you
know.
get a formal correspondence from them via email anyway, don't you?
It depends, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll let Rose know.
Okay. So,
For
and-
both parties.
Right.
All, yeah,
Yeah.
all situations.
Right, because I think we had 5 recommended from the Democratic Town Committee and 1 through the Republican.
And one,
Town
and they're
Committee.
still working on
Well,
it.
and then, on the ones that are unaffiliated, I mean, maybe, your office should just check the information.
Well, we do.
So then,
Yeah.
it would be a recommendation from your office
Right.
at that point.
Right.
Or somebody could come forward not as acting on recommendation, but just
Mm.
as us taking an action. And we
Then
might
they
ask
could
different
show up here and
questions.
be-
We might have a different procedure we go through.
Give them the 3rd degree.
But we don't
We're
want to
looking
rubber
for
stamp
people, not trying to scare
I
them
know,
away.
we're trying to.
Right, of course.
True. All right,
Miss a
17.
meeting and we'll appoint you.
17.7, act on resignation of Elise Lowe from the Cable Advisory Council of South Central Connecticut.
With regret.
With regret and appreciation.
appreciation,
All
yes.
right, so that's
Dedicated
been
person.
moved. Second.
Second.
Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Item 18, request for use of town property, 18.1, act on a request, from.
Second.
Second, call the question,
Aye.
all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 19, correspondence, anything on correspondence from the building committee?